Welcome to the Glen Mercer Show. You could find us, excuse me, across all your favorite podcast platforms. You could find us on YouTube. You could find us at realmeneatplants.com. My guest today is my old friend Robert Cheeke. He is a vegan champion bodybuilder, a vegan activist. He is author of this wonderful book, The Impactful Vegan, and another book called Shred It that I have somewhere, but I couldn't find it. And he is the co-author of The Plant-Based Athlete. His websites are veganbodybuilding.com and impactfulvegan.com. Robert, welcome to the show.
Glenn, thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you. I almost got choked up there a little bit introducing you, so let me get a sip of water.
Yeah, you wouldn't be the first, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. So you've got some kind of a veg fest tour that you're doing, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is exciting for me, Glenn, because I started my Veg Fest speaking tour 20 years ago, but it was always kind of off and on. I do a couple events a year whenever I was invited to be a speaker. Maybe that was once or twice a year at a couple of festivals. And then I became an exhibitor for my own brand, Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness. I had a lot of apparel back then, a bunch of self-published books, even a documentary that I produced called Vegan Fitness Built Naturally 20 years ago. And nobody would have heard of it
Wow,
today.
you did a documentary 20 years ago?
Yeah, yeah. And we actually sold DVDs. We distributed about
Oh,
3,000.
we didn't know each other then, or I could have been in it.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. And so, I was doing this vegan festival tour, selling my own items and exhibiting and speaking. And then I was the national tour manager for a number of different brands, including Vega, Vegan Strong. And so I was doing that circuit. And then I kind of, took a break for a while. And also COVID forced a break for a while. And then I saw you, I think, just coming out of
In
COVID, I
South
want to say.
Bend.
Yeah, Michiana Veg Fest, South Bend, Indiana. And I think that was just after COVID, although I'm not totally sure.
I
And
think I know COVID was still happening
yeah, okay. So it was, yeah, it
because
was,
my wife got COVID at that weekend.
okay. All right. Yeah. So yeah, we were still out there touring occasionally during COVID. But Glenn, now, especially with the release of the Impactful Vegan, I mean, I went from a few Veg Fests a year to being a national tour manager and being at a dozen of them to I did 25 events last year and I've got 20 this year. So I've been at it. In fact, I was just talking to my friend and they were asking, "Oh, well, Robert, where are you headed to next?" And I'm like, "Well, I was flying home yesterday." So I said, I'm getting home today. I leave for Arizona in a couple days. And then I've got an event in Denver in between the next couple days. And then going off to Alaska for the Alaska Vegan Cruise. And then the very next week, I'm in Salt Lake City. And then I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia the next week, and then Denver for their Veg Fest the next week, and then Madison, Wisconsin the very next week for their Veg Fest, and then home to harvest walnuts on the farm I grew up on, and then over to Orlando for their Veg Fest, the following weekend speaking in San Francisco for their Veg Fest, the following weekend in Tampa Bay for their Veg Fest, and then it's getting close to Thanksgiving, time for me to do some family stuff, and then I've got a vegan holiday market in Denver and Boulder in back-to-back weekends in December. So
Wow. Does your wife remember what you look like?
yeah, we have photos on our phones and
Okay.
FaceTime and all that. So yeah, occasionally I'm back home. It's just been one of those things that, as an author and as a writer and a speaker, trying to get myself out there, this works. Just as a quick example, Glenn, I was an exhibitor at the Santa Cruz Veg Fest, Santa Cruz, California, a couple months ago, and they said, "Why aren't you a speaker?" I said, "I just signed up as an exhibitor." They said, "How would you like to speak in San Francisco?" And so they arranged that, and they, like, there's all kinds of perks that come with it. A free booth to sell all my stuff, and travel and lodging often covered, sometimes an honorarium, all that kind of stuff. And because I have so many books now, I've authored not as many as you, but I've authored five in print and one digital one. So I often like to say six. And I'm representing other books like, Joe Gagnon's book, Living Intentionally. I wrote the
I
forward for.
read that book. Terrific book.
Yeah, I take that on tour. Plus, I work with all these companies. So if I can get a free booth, I can do all right. I had a Veg Fest last weekend, or maybe not last weekend, but the weekend before in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it was great. Small event. I did very, very well because I had enough things at my booth. So, so
So
that's
what sorts of items do you have in your booths at these veg fests?
Yeah, so I've got all six or five of my books. I've got
Right.
some friends' books that I've written the forward for. My name's on the
Uh-huh.
front cover, the back cover, the inside cover, books that I'm helping get the word out about. And then I have what I call really the big thing, Glenn, as far as like what brings in the revenue or what brings people to the booth aside from me and my flexing and getting attention that way is that I have these plant-based product bundles. I've worked with over 125 brands over the last 5 years. I receive product donations and coupons and full-size products and sample-size products from dozens and dozens and dozens of companies currently, so they can have a presence there at a Veg Fest in anywhere America or anywhere North America. I often go up to Canada as well, and they don't have to have their own booth, fly themselves there, pay for a hotel, pay for their staff, pay for all the insurance and all these fees. And what I do is I bundle all these products. They're donated, and they know that I'm reselling them. But I what I do is I make a $100 value assortment variety package that I sell for just $20. And I wrote about that in The Impactful Vegan. The reason behind that is because I want to get as many plant-based products into the hands, homes, and mouths of as many people as possible. And because we know from surveys that as much as 50% or more of Veg Fest attendees are not vegan, many of these calories are calories that otherwise would have been animal based. And I've got things like vegan jerkies and protein powders and mac and cheese and things that would have unequivocally been animal based versus like a electrolyte drink, which is always going to be plant based, just, electrolytes in a powder form, or something that's going to be plant based already. I work with all kinds of products that would have normally been animal based. I get
Mhm.
coupons for plant based meat products, plant based cheese products, plant based ice cream products. I pass those out. And physical products, high protein pasta, bars of all types, protein bars, snack bars, crackers, chips, snacks, but also lots of sports nutrition products, pre workout, post workout, branched chain amino acid products, protein powders and drinks, and all of these different things. And the whole idea is to make it as accessible as possible. So I'll show people the bag. They say, "What do you mean? All of this for only $20? How is that possible when one item alone is worth $20 and there's like 25 items in the bundle? Why?" And I explained that, well, you may never have seen these plant-based bacon bits before. You may have never tried this hot sauce before, or this brand of vegan mac and cheese, or you've never heard of this plant-based, I don't know, dairy product that I have a coupon for that's trying to get their name out there. This gives you the opportunity to try these brands, see if you like them. There's often coupon codes for them inside. If you like them, you can support those brands. The brands win with product awareness. Their products get featured online and social media and photos. In my newsletter to thousands of people, I highlight the brands and all of that. They get their products out there. People get to try all of these things for one low price, and I get to help recoup my costs because I'm paying for the travel and lodging and shipping, especially when I'm exhibiting, not speaking. When I'm not
Right.
speaking, all the costs are my own. I got to
Yeah.
drive or fly and luggage and buy insurance and booth fees and all that stuff. So that's why I often say, Glenn, I have one of the most popular booths at any given Veg Fest because I have the best deal. You just can't find that deal anywhere else. Nowhere can you find an opportunity where you get 5 times the value of the low price you pay, $20 for $100 worth of products. And plus, I have my books and my own
Right.
reputation that tends to bring people over. So I honestly, Glenn, I'm having a great time. I mean, fellow speakers like you and so many others. I mean, I get to bump into Michael Greger, and I just saw Dr. Jim Loomis at the last Veg Fest, and Karen Dugan, and um, all kinds of speakers that I'll come across doctors, physicians, authors, chefs, athletes, celebrities, you name it. Plus wonderful attendees, and I get to grow my newsletter audience and personal brand and all that along the way. So I've got a great.
Now, do you find that a lot of these veg fests are similar or are they very different?
That's the thing, and that's a good question. And a lot of people ask that. They say, Robert, is it like one overarching veg fest organization? No, they're all independently run. Many of them use the name Veg Fest because that's just the common name to call these vegan festivals. Some use the name Vegan Fest. Some say Vegan Festival. Some say Veggie Fest. Some say Veg Festival. They're all
Hmm.
different individual organizations, and they're run very differently as well. Uh,
Hmm.
some are indoors, some are outdoors, some are indoors and outdoors. In fact, just recently, when you're going every week, I was at Eugene Vegan Fest, and then Santa Cruz and Denver, and back-to-back weekends. One time, even back-to-back days. I did one event in Santa Cruz on a Saturday, flew to Colorado in time to make it for the Sunday event, two in one weekend. I forgot, I wasn't paying attention, and I flew to Asheville, North Carolina for their Vegan Fest. I got there, I went to set up. This is just fairly recently, so summertime. It was the hottest day of the year. I flew in from out west, so I didn't have a canopy, no tent. It was outdoors. I was the lone booth out there with just a 6 foot table and just heat and humidity pounding down on me. Glenn, no exaggeration. People were offering to run to a store and buy me a tent. I didn't want them to have to do that, nor would I know what to do with the tent afterwards. I was flying home the next day. Uh, my neighbor gave me a hat to wear. The other neighbor, get this, gave me ice packs. They had a bunch of cookies they drove in from Ohio. They gave me ice packs to put on my neck because I was just melting. I was soaked. I mean, just shirt was completely soaked.
Did you make a lot of pity sales?
I I wish that event actually was not very good in sales because
Uh-huh.
largely I think because the weather and partly because my booth was a little bit hidden. I was just there, but
Uh-huh.
without a tent, tents
Yeah.
on either side of me, and I was this little 6 foot booth, and I didn't have a lot of product.
Somebody should have invited you under their shade.
Yeah, well, we had a massive downpour at the
Mm.
very end at 5 o'clock. Luckily, it
That
didn't.
was just a perfect event, wasn't it?
And this was, I mean, imagine if the rain came sooner. It came right at 5, and I'm talking like if I didn't get my books out of there, completely ruined. We're talking inches. Water was running down the streets, puddles. I was splashing through it, getting to my car.
Asheville has had some problems with flooding.
Yeah, and this was a giant downpour. It only lasted for a little bit, but so they're all different. Glenn, some of them have 1,000 people. Some have 25,000 people. Some are one day.
25,000?
Yeah. Yeah. Some actually have
What
40.
what would be the big one with 25,000?
Boston Veg Fest. It's over the course of 2 days. Uh, uh, Orange County, or they call it SoCal Veg Fest, Orange County, California. I saw Moby there, John Lewis there, all kinds of big name, vegan people, especially those who are in LA. They show up, celebrities and stuff. Not that I care about that, but it's fun to see John Sally or a few of my friends that are in that kind of celebrity world. And yeah, over the course of 2 days, 25,000 people. I've heard Chicago, which I was there 6 years in a row, so I can verify. I haven't been in a while, but they claim to get 40,000 people. And I think it's either
Wow.
2 or even 3 day festival. They just had it last week when I was in
What's the venue for that?
outdoors. Giant, giant outdoor area, just tents. And you know what, Glenn, is so crazy? Not that we need to put value on those, extra value on those that have reputations, popular names in our movement, like a Dr. Barnard or someone else that's very recognizable. Chicago Veggie Fest was the first event I'd ever went to where there were no name presenters. And I mean, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but local presenters no one's ever heard of. They don't do the national tour. They just do that Chicago area when they're asked. Get 500 people in the audience. It was unbelievable. I mean, many times the big names, Gregor, etc., don't get that many at the Veg Fest. Yet in Chicago, because the sheer numbers, 40,000 people, a giant circus type tent with hundreds of chairs. You want to escape from the heat in August? Go sit down, listen to a speaker you'd never heard of who gets an audience built in of two, three, four, 500 people. So that's the scope and scale are dramatically different. And in many ways, I've been able to somewhat make, I don't want to say make a living doing it, but at least contribute significantly um, to making that work. These veg fests, they can be a huge spike in in sales and business. Like as an example, and this is not an ego based comment, but one time in Fairfax, Virginia, you should have seen the lineup of speakers. This is only a few years ago. It was unbelievable. It was Dr. T. Colin Campbell, Dr. Neil Barnard, Chuck Carroll. I think Dr. Baxter Montgomery, the late Dr. Montgomery, was speaking there. Gene Bauer, Dr. Jim Loomis, and me. And
A good lineup.
I had a 4 hour continuous line for a signed book or to say hi or whatever at the speaker's tent. And that may have been because I talked too long to each person, who knows. But the line never stopped. I was just desperate to go to the bathroom. And I sold out of all my books. I had a few maybe in the car. I gave a stranger, I don't even know who they were, my keys to go try to find my rental car and pull out any additional books they could find. And I sold out. And that happened in Eugene recently, near my hometown. It was amazing, Glenn. I just told this story at a family reunion a few days ago. I had people, and it's hard to tell this story without it sounding like ego. This was near my hometown, 40 minutes away. I hadn't spoken there in 20 years and never spoken in my hometown. I was in Eugene, Oregon. I'm from Corvallis. I had people in the audience, every seat taken, people sitting on the floor, standing against the walls. I had former high school classmates I hadn't seen in 20 years who came out and then stood in line to get a signed book. Basically my old classmates stood in line to get an autograph. It was mind blowing. I sold out of books. I sold like 65 books because that's all I could bring and flying to Eugene and in my suitcase. And there was still a line when I sold out, and I had to arrange other forms of delivery to ship books out if people really wanted to get it signed. And uh, anyway, it can be very rewarding out there on tour.
Yeah. I once somebody proposed to me that I sell my books at a booth in Los Angeles for their Veg Fest. And I said, I don't know if it's worth it because when I factor in the cost of a booth and
Yeah.
then standing out there all day and how many books am I going to sell, I'll probably lose money on it. And she said, well, you can share a booth with my friend. I won't use his real name, but you could share a booth with my friend Joe. He's also selling a book. So I said, well, maybe for half price of the booth, whatever it was, $70 or something. I said, all right, maybe I'll try it. So I bring all my books there. And as you know, I had a lot of books. I had my two books with Howard Lyman, Mad Cowboy and No More Bull. Had my books with Chef AJ. Um, I had my novel Off the Reservation. And I had less books then than I have now, but I had 6 or 7 books. Oh, I had my book with Pam Popper, Food Over Medicine, and my book with Chef Del Schroff, Better Than Vegan. And I had the Happy Cow cookbooks. I had 7 or 8 books. Um, and my novel was self-published, but the others were with publishing companies. And this guy, Joe, this poor guy, he had one book, some kind of self-published book about the moral argument against eating animals or something like that. And I'm thinking, the poor guy, he must feel embarrassed next to me. I got all this, and he's got this one book, and he's got 100 copies of it. And then the crowd comes, and they would come to me, and they'd say, "Oh, what do you have here?" And they would look at Mad Cowboy. They would flip through it. What's this is about? Oh, this is about Howard Lyman. He was a fourth generation cattle rancher who writes about mad cow disease here and how he learned to He transformed from a cattle rancher to a vegan activist. Oh, that sounds very interesting. And then they would put it down, and then they would go to Joe and say, "What's this?" And Joe would say, "Oh, it's the moral argument against eating animals. How much is it? 20 bucks. Buy it." He sold 100 books and I sold three. So I got very angry at the Veg Fest there after that experience.
Yeah, you know, Glenn, I've had all of those experiences. I've had, well, even when I saw you in South Bend, I
Mm-hmm.
sold 10 books maybe. I mean,
Uh-huh.
and I travel across the country and suitcases full and they're heavy and suitcases break
Mm-hmm.
down. I've got to replace them every couple of years. They just get worn out carrying these heavy books. I mean, I just flew back with 50 pounds of luggage and just yesterday, and it's always like that. And I've had big aspirations many times and thinking how could people not be interested in these books, building your body on a plant-based diet, or this one means it's a New York Times bestseller, the plant-based athlete.
Yeah.
Isn't everyone interested? And they just sit there sometimes. And other times I don't bring enough books. And there was one time, the wildest experience I think I ever had. I was invited, I'm very honored, privileged to be a speaker at Dr. T. Colin Campbell's wellness retreat a few years ago. It was the first one he'd organized, he and his team.
This was in North Carolina.
This one was in Tucson, Arizona. It was
Okay.
their first one of the Center for Nutrition Studies T. Colin Campbell Foundation Wellness Retreat. It was their first one, and I gave them some tips, I guess, for organizing once they invited me as a speaker, because I had put on events myself numerous times over the years, and anyway, just shared ideas. And I went there. It was dinner with Dr. Campbell and his family the night before, and that was fantastic, very memorable, and I had a very memorable conversation, just walking, just me and Dr. Campbell just chatting, because I felt a little bit inadequate there. I was the least, by a landslide, the least educated speaker. Everyone there was a physician, a registered dietitian, or expert in this, and then there was me. All MDs, basically all doctors, PhDs, and dietitians, and me. And he gave me some kind words and helped me feel a bit more at ease and comfortable. And so I was set to give multiple presentations. I gave my first talk, and it was one of these things, you could hear a pin drop. And I had 45 books, I think, stacked on a table. And once again, Glenn, no exaggeration, I finished this talk at the time one of the best I'd ever given. I had to walk maybe 8 paces to put the microphone down. When I turned back around, all 45 books were gone. People actually ran up there. One person even just threw $100 bill. She actually threw it. Just threw, like, it was such a bizarre feeling. And so by the time I gave my next talk, the next day, 0 books. I didn't have any. I
Wow.
I did not know what to expect. I figured this is going to be how it always is. I'm always carrying an extra 20, 30 copies back home because they didn't sell. And it's just what you do. I've been doing this for 20 years, or I guess 15 years as a published author. This is what happens. You always just haul back your extras. Not this time in Tucson. And it
Uh-huh.
was just caught me by surprise. The combination of the audience there, they'd all paid thousands of dollars to be there. So it was an immersion retreat versus a free veg fest that you're just kind of casually sitting in on.
Right.
Everybody was interested in the content matter. And perhaps because I was the only fitness person there, and I'd written books about T. Colin Campbell's approach. That's what Shredded is all about, a whole food plant-based guide to burning fat and building muscle. And it just resonated with that audience. And so uh, same with that event in Eugene, Oregon. I had no idea I thought I had plenty of books. In fact, I thought I'd sell a dozen. Sold 65 copies, and people were asking for more. So it's wild, wild west out there. And so many different things happen, from events that get shut down early due to weather, to lower than expected attendance, to greater than expected attendance, to, I mean, one time I was in New Orleans after Katrina, because everything was boarded up and it was depressing and eerie and weird to see. You'd think I'm making this up, Glenn. We went to Veg Fest. This was 2004.
Right?
No, no, no. I'm trying to think when they invited me to speak. It could have been 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'll have to think about it. Could have been 2010. I don't know. It was a while ago. We're talking like 15 years ago. But we went out to go set up the booth and thought we'd stop by Whole Foods Market on the way, grab some food for the long day at the festival. And the rain's coming down. No big deal. By the time we get out of Whole Foods, there's already a few inches uh, on the ground. By the time we get to the venue, we're driving, the wheels are covered. We're unloading knee deep in water. We saw people going by on boats, saw furniture floating by, and figured the event was canceled. Of course, why not? Place underwater. And then by, I don't know, we're setting up at 9 a.m., 10 a.m. By 1 p.m., water had receded and the Veg Fest took place. But
Wow.
I have photos from some sort of point and shoot, you know, camera back then with an SD card, certainly not a phone. Uh, I have photos of just carrying boxes knee deep in water, and these kind of things happen. And I remember things just floating by, just furniture, boats going by down the road, and he's
Now,
why
is it difficult if you're a speaker to speak at an outdoor event versus indoor in a conference room?
it can be. I spoke in Las Vegas. I remember at not quite an amphitheater, but it's just the closest person to you is a good 20 yards away. You're on a main stage and there's nobody near you. I mean, imagine being an entertainer of any type, a comedian, a performer. There's audience interaction, or there's at least someone close by to look at or engage with. Here I was just isolated on this stage, and everyone's far away out in the grass and with exhibitors all around the perimeter. And so it's hard to know if you have anyone's attention. And people are sitting there on the picnic blankets and eating food and talking amongst themselves,
Right.
and it can be hard to get attention. Other times, I did a talk last year, and there was no microphone. This was an indoor one though, but it was in a sports venue, a convention center at a fitness expo. No microphone. We delayed the talk by 15 minutes while people were trying to run over to Best Buy and get some cords. Audience was getting really antsy, and we just panicked and said, I got to go. I just got to go. So for an hour, I just shouted, and people could still barely hear me. These things, it comes with the territory. Sometimes it's just perfect. You have a great crowd, everyone's engaged, nobody leaves, the audio system works, people enjoy it, and you have great feedback, and you sign a lot of books, and everyone has a good time. Other times, in fact, I think this happened in when I saw you in Michiana, people start walking out, and it may have nothing to do with my presentation. It may be they had to go meet their friend. They said they would meet halfway through. I'll go listen to
Right.
this presentation, and I'll meet you, at the food court. Or maybe they got to go pick up their kid, or they're
Yeah.
helping babysit. They had something else they had to go do. It may have nothing to do with me, but as a presenter, I start to panic. Uh-oh,
Yeah.
people are filing out. It's like a comedian when you're starting to get a little bit of booze, or then you got to go back to your
Yeah.
old stuff. So I even had to pivot in that Michiana Veg Fest. I thought, oh no. And you remember it was like this kind of tall
Yeah.
auditorium, and it wasn't
Yeah.
very full. And I thought, uh-oh, I need to bring the crowd back in. I got to go back to my best content, even if it's not what I plan to share today. So it varies: indoor, outdoor, large venue, small venue. Um, I just did one where in Denver, I was a speaker at the Veg Fest in June, and great photo before it starts. Just shows this huge auditorium, all these seats. It looks beautiful. I posted photos, calm before the storm, before the talk. But then I was the last speaker of the day. I didn't realize that by time my talk ended, the Veg Fest was over. I thought there was still an hour of Veg Fest afterwards. There wasn't.
Hmm.
So sprinkled among these hundreds of seats were maybe 30 folks. So the auditorium looks great, but when it's that sparsely
Right.
populated, you feel a little bit inadequate or insecure or uneasy. And then when I walked out afterwards and really tried to hustle to get back to my booth to do a book signing, and I saw booths packing up and hauling their stuff away, I thought, oh, what's going on here? Um,
Yeah.
so a mix of experiences, but the great thing is that these are still happening. Post COVID, a number of events shut down. Um, I'm still doing fantastic events. Last year, 25 cities. This year, 20 cities. I've had record sales at some of these events, partly from brand new books, partly from these bundles, which are kind of a new thing for me on tour, and people
Right.
can't say no to an incredible deal. Whatever it is, I'm still finding success out there on the road. And as we're talking here in mid-August, I've got the Alaska Vegan Cruise at the end of this month in early September, and then the Salt Lake City Veg Fest September 13th. And so really excited about that. And then, pretty much every weekend on down the line, I've got one somewhere. And I try to share that schedule online. I'm not very good at updating website, but certainly on social media, I let people know on Instagram, Facebook, hey, I'll be in Albuquerque, I'll be in Salt Lake, I'll be in San
Hmm.
Francisco, I'll be in anyone around in this city, will I see anybody in Orlando, that kind of thing.
Now, I know this would be more difficult in terms of your booths, but have you done any in Europe?
Yes, I have. Uh, Only once I was invited to speak at the Veg Fest in London. It's at a place called the Olympia, building called the Olympia, I think, Olympia Center. And it's big, another 20,000 person event. Um, I was there in 2016. But I have to tell you, before that, Glenn, to date, the most successful tour I've ever done in my life was to Australia, 2014. Check this out. Because of the way they organize their Veg Fest, it's absolutely brilliant for the locals in the country and for people like me. I mean, there's only a handful of people like me coming in from very far away. But it was the Adelaide Veg Fest that invited me. So they covered my expenses, which was great. And once I fulfilled that obligation, the very next weekend was the Sydney Veg Fest. And the very next weekend, the Melbourne Veg Fest. So in basically a 15-day period, because you got this Veg Fest and this Veg Fest, two
Right.
in a 7 or 8 day period, 7 days later, a third one. 3 Veg Fests in a roughly 15-day period, 3 different cities. I did so well at those events because think about it, Glenn. And that was back then. All I had was my apparel and my just 2 self-published books. But if you wanted those self-published books, which were quite popular back then, when I was one of the only people writing about vegan fitness, me and Brendan Brazier, basically, I think even before Rich Roll was doing it, you had to pay a lot for shipping. You might pay $40 or $50 to get a T-shirt just for the shipping alone from the U.S. to Australia. You'd pay $35 to ship a book there. So what I did was my then girlfriend, now wife, we packed, I think it's up to 70 pounds you can take internationally in suitcases. So we each packed like 2 70-pound suitcases. And this will be interesting only for like the people that really want the nuances. But this is really fascinating. We brought all these books and apparel and everything. And not only did we do the Veg Fest, in between, Glenn, I would set up talks at restaurants in between on weekdays, like on a Wednesday. And I'd sell $1,000 worth of products in an evening. It was unbelievable. I'd get 60 people packed in a restaurant just to come see me because I was from faraway land on the other side of the world. What happened when I ran out of books right away? There's something I learned from a publisher a long time ago called, maybe you know about this, FedEx International Great Rate. You
No, never heard of that.
Okay, there's something called, I don't even know, I assume it's still around. FedEx International Great Rate. You actually had to call them on the phone. You couldn't email them or anything. You had to call them and someone would answer. And it had to be a Wednesday. I know this almost sounds like it's a joke. It had to be a Wednesday, and you had to call a number. They say, "Welcome, FedEx International, great rate. Today's offer is 76% off." They would ship on a Wednesday boxes of books, and they would arrive on a Monday. It takes 5 days. They would ship from Oregon, which is, I had a self-published, not even through Amazon, but like a self-publishing book company in Oregon. They would ship them for me, or maybe later Amazon would, because I did this trip to Australia 2 years in a row. Anytime I would run out of books, I would call FedEx International Great Rate. They would ship however many I asked for, and it was very affordable. They would give me like a 76% off shipping rate, and it would be there in 5 days. And then I would take those books to the next festival, city after city. So I would haul books with me, my luggage to Adelaide, then ship more to Sydney and ship more to Melbourne and come home. Glenn, between the apparel and the books, I grossed something like $10,000 in sales in those 3 weeks. And I got to visit all these amazing cities and do fun things like climb the Sydney Harbor Bridge and
Hmm.
out in the Blue Mountains and hike and see koalas. And I saw kangaroos fighting on an early morning run outside of Melbourne. And
Oh, they're not pacifists then.
no, no, they actually box the
Hmm.
kangaroos box and everything. It's interesting to see. The trip was so successful. I paid my own way to go the next year. If I
Yeah,
do
you
nearly
had a
10,000,
beautiful paid vacation.
yeah, if I'm going to do nearly $10,000 in gross sales in 3 weeks, and guess what? The next year, Glenn, it was the exact same setup. Adelaide one weekend, Sydney, Melbourne. And because I was an exotic person, I was able to speak at either two or all three of those events. The first year, I really honored Adelaide because they flew me out there. I
Mhm.
never even mentioned that I was going to go to Sydney. In fact, I had some friends fly from Sydney to come see me in Adelaide, not knowing I was going to be in Sydney the next week. But I had to honor the fact that Adelaide spent thousands of dollars to get me out there. And
Right.
and so that tour was incredible. In fact, I'm a little bit itching to go back out there to Australia because it was so good.
Well, if you're listening, Adelaide, Robert's interested.
And I've got a lot more books now, including New York Times bestseller and The Impactful Vegan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also was invited to speak in China. I didn't mention that. That was a crazy event.
Really?
Yeah, I was invited to speak at a fitness expo organized by a committee, many of whom were vegans. This was in 2017.
Did you go?
I did. It was my highest paid gig of all time.
Wow.
I don't know the full take home, but it was many thousands of dollars. They paid me and put me up in a hotel. I had a translator. I stayed in the Olympic Village. I went to all
How
the.
was the food?
Oh, it was great. I even went on a vegan festival, a vegan restaurant tour. Something Tiger is a big chain there. Like again, it's
But was
been
everything oily?
probably. It's been 8 years. I don't remember exactly, but that was a very.
Because
It was
that's the problem often for me with Veg Fests. Is there'll be all these booths selling vegan food, but they're cooking it in oil all the time.
yeah, yeah,
And I get annoyed.
yeah. Well, that's. I mean, we could go on forever about this because veg fests have changed a lot. They've turned more into, and I say this respectfully, they've turned more into a food festival and more accurately probably a junk food vegan festival.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't see as many retailers with apparel and with soy-based candles and jewelry and all. I mean, things need to evolve, obviously, but Veg Fest 20 years ago were a lot of artisan crafts by. There were even individual. I know friends by name that they just waited for the Veg Fest to come around, and that was their big break. They'd do thousands of dollars in sales, and it really helped their independently owned business, and they'd get repeat customers after that. That's the thing. There's always additional benefits, Glenn. Like, yeah, I may go sell a couple $1,000s worth of books and bundles, but then I get all expenses paid trip to go speak at this event, and then speak at this event, and then someone sees me speak, and I get invited to go speak on this event, and invited to this event. There's often these extra bonuses that come from it from an exhibitor
Mhm.
standpoint, but it absolutely has changed. It's very much a processed food, ultra processed food, junk food festival these days. And then there's a lot of non-vegan, how do I say this? A lot of non-vegan booths there that are selling things like gutter repair or window repair that they have nothing to do with veganism, but they help pay vendor fees and help the event. Um, I'm sure you've seen these.
Hmm.
They're the construction companies, window companies, gutter companies, painting companies, insurance companies. They have a budget to get booths at any event they can possibly find. Music festival, sports festival, art festival, vegan festival. They'll be there. You can count on them. I see them all the time. They're there. Renewal by Anderson, right? The window company. Leaf Gutter. They're there. They're always there. And so veg fests have a slightly different feel now. You get these big corporations that can afford to be at every festival in the world, and so they have a presence there, which does help the veg fest pay their bills and keep the veg fest going. And then you get a lot of food, food, food. And think about it. Who's going to this vegan food and music festival to go buy a heavy book and carry it around? Not a lot of people. So I'm a little bit in uphill battle, which is why I had to pivot as well. And I have all these plant-based bundles now. Now I support all these plant-based brands and elevate and amplify their brands, get their products distributed out to people, praise their products, show which ones are my favorites. Yo, you got to try this one. And it, I just like apparel, I couldn't do it anymore. I sold clothing for 15 years. I'm one of the original people in the whole world to sell vegan fitness apparel. Maybe one of the absolute first in the world. Over 20 years ago, I started. I only lasted 15 years or less because I couldn't do it anymore. Too many sizes, too many colors, too much inventory, too much unsold product, too much transportation costs, too little margins. People didn't want apparel anymore. They didn't want to wear vegan messages. They wanted food, they wanted beverages, they wanted alcohol, they wanted something different. Same with books. I was all excited. Here I am. I've been writing books since I was a kid, and I've been publishing books since I was, turned 30, and I've been doing it for almost 2 decades now. And isn't everyone excited about my books? Some people, but they'd rather purchase other things, food and beverage and a few souvenirs. And so I've got to consistently and constantly innovate and try to find new
Well,
things.
you've made some transformations in your career. You started out as a bodybuilder
Yeah,
athlete. You're still a bodybuilder athlete.
I'd like to think I look the part for the most part. Uh,
Two could play at that game, pal.
yeah. I like the pal in there too.
Yeah.
You can play that game, pal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to transition to talk about some of the fitness stuff in a little bit, but go ahead, Glenn.
Okay. So you began that's what brought attention to you, the bodybuilding, the being a bodybuilding champion. And then you became an author
Yeah,
with Plant-Based Athlete, The Impactful Vegan, and Shred It, and I guess a couple other books.
yeah.
Um, and um, and now helping other vegans promote their wares and vegan businesses and vegan authors. That's become a new gig for you, hasn't it? So tell us about that.
It has been. That's Glenn, that's the most exciting thing I've got going on, and it 100% fell into my lap unexpectedly. So I've been writing books, and I know you're out there, and I know Gene Stone's out there, and Jessica Porter, and maybe some others that have helped other authors write books. I saw Howard Lyman's books. I used to see Howard Lyman on tour 20 years ago. In fact, I paid Howard Lyman. It was the biggest check I'd ever written. At that time in my life, I was 26 years old. 26 years old, 19 years ago, and I paid Howard Lyman $1,000 to speak at my festival in Portland, Oregon, the Vegan Holiday Festival. I had about 1,200 people attend. Um, and he was one of many speakers, but I've been familiar with your books for a long time now. And I knew you were helping other authors write books. And I knew Gene Stone's doing that and Jessica Porter and a few others. I never considered that for myself. I just figured I've been wanting to write books since I was 8 years old. I had tried, I wrote a bunch of books. I even had a writing coach in high school. A lot of people do sports. I did as well, but I had someone meet with me during my off period or during lunch, and I would write. And I had a coach, and I wrote 300-page book as a 14-year-old or something, or a 15, 16-year-old in high school. And this is something I always wanted to pursue. I wrote and spiral bound and laminated books back in 1988 in Mrs. Young's third grade class. I was 8 years old. I printed all these books. I still have them. That could make a great story someday. Uh, I've always wanted to write, but I thought I had to write my own books. I had to write my own, I had to tell my own story. I had to write things for me, my name on the cover. That's all I thought about. And I had a mixed reaction to the Impactful Vegan. It was slow at first, and then it soared, and then it cooled off again. And
Excellent book, folks. If you haven't read it yet, The Impactful Vegan.
and that's the thing, Glenn. It is. It's so good. That's why it was so disappointing when it just didn't do as well as I'd hoped. Now, it sold well over 5,000 copies relatively quickly out of the gate within the first year. And but it still set me back a little bit emotionally and psychologically. Granted, I'm probably somewhat comparing it to my previous book, which was a New York Times bestseller and translated into 8 languages worldwide, and I had breakthrough success, and
Mm-hmm.
that got me lots more invitations and more opportunities, and I went out to do it on my own again. No more co-author, no more. I'm just going to go do it on my own again, and then felt like I didn't do as well as I wanted. And I was still working at it, but I had to take I had to go back and find a regular job. I've always been working regular jobs in sales, usually sales and marketing, while I do my writing. Many people know I worked for Vega for a decade, a plant-based nutrition company. I co-founded and ran Vegan Strong for 5 years, an organization promoting plant-based fitness at major fitness expos and through media and all that. And then I worked for, I've lost count at this point, Glenn, 3 or 4 different vegan fitness coaching companies in various roles. And then I took another job because I needed to. I was out of money. And I took a job with a plant-based nutrition company, a protein powder company, Plant Powered Athlete, last year. Right after my book came out and didn't do as well as I had hoped. And I fell into a bout of depression, and someone reached out to me and gave me a job. And I was doing really well at it. I was selling thousands of dollars worth of the protein powder on tour. I was bundling it with all the other products to make it easier to sell through
Mm-hmm.
incentives, doing webinars and newsletters. I wrote 3 newsletters a week, every single week, like clockwork. I never missed it. And they were great articles, and sometimes a dozen citations per article with references and resources. I was getting pretty good at it. I did a final webinar before the company shut down. I think I sold close to $8,000 in protein powder in 72 hours until we sold out. Things were going fine. It was a part-time role. I was told I was going to move into full-time, and then company unexpectedly shut down. The founder wanted to go in a different direction and pursue something else, and we were also trying to find some funding and struggling to find funding, and naturally it dissolved. But it still came unexpectedly because 2 weeks prior,
Mm-hmm.
I was told I was moving into full-time, and I was excited about that because I was getting pretty good at it. And I was the national tour manager. That was part of the 25 cities I went to. Went to about 14 cities on behalf of them. They funded that. Well, I sold tens of thousands of dollars in their product. It was great. That all fell apart. And at that exact same time, somebody reached out to me and asked if I would give them advice on writing a book. I didn't even want to talk. I pushed it off to the side. I'm not in the mood. I went back and was depressed again. In fact, this is not directly related, Glenn, but I even had to sell my house, downsize, couldn't afford the house anymore. These were major things going on. Relationship conflict, marriage conflict, all the stuff that comes from. I bet on myself, went all in on my books and my writing career and all this, and it didn't pan out after X number of years. And here I was, sold the house, and I was out of a job again. And I was not even interested in talking to this. And he was a friend of mine too. I didn't want to talk. Reluctantly took a phone call. 1 hour turned into 2 hours. And then all of a sudden, we're collaborating on a book together. And then a week later, when this company shut down, this guy Joe Gagnon was the advisor for Plant Powered Athlete, and he had been
I
working.
interviewed him on my podcast a few
Yeah,
weeks ago.
fantastic guy. He was working on a book. It wasn't nearly done. It was halfway done. He said, Robert, I know you're out of a job now, because he was the one helping me try to keep that job. And he's like, I know you're out of a job. Would you like to work with me on my book? I said, sure. I got nothing else going on except this other project I had started 1 week prior. I was only 1 week into the other book project. And so Joe and I hit the ground running. Met for dinner. We both live in Colorado, about an hour apart. Met for dinner. By the very next day, I was working on the project. And that was back in February. As you know, the rest of the story. The book is out now. Hit number one in at least one category on Amazon. Top two bestseller in three categories, which is fairly difficult to do, especially with a self-published book with an author that doesn't have much of an audience. And we did very, very well. And then he introduced me to somebody else, his friend, who had already written a book but needed help with the marketing. I worked on that book, took it to number one on Amazon in two different categories, and one of the top 1,700 best-selling books in the whole world for an entire week, and dozens of five-star reviews all in a short amount of time. All very happy. And then another book project, and now this is, and I've actually had to turn away. You never know how serious the people are, but they certainly inquire and have asked, and some have been willing to pay and hire, and I've had to turn away probably about 10 people.
10?
Um,
You've turned down 10 jobs to promote books?
yeah, because I can't handle it. Because one of these, I don't want to say which one, because I don't know how much is going to be revealed. But one of these books I'm actually ghostwriting. I'm writing dang near the entire thing myself, 350-page book in someone else's voice. It's a very difficult task. And I had a short, about about a year less than I would normally have to write a book of that length. That's even my own book. And
Right.
so I've been juggling four books at the same time. One of them I'm ghostwriting, one of them I'm co-writing, one of them I'm marketing, another one I'm marketing. And so I don't have great business acumen. I can't, and I don't have a budget. I mean, man, remember, I just came from, I was unemployed and then did a book, unemployed again. I haven't had a lot of jobs the last few years because I've been going all in on this book stuff, and the paid speaking, the Veg Fest and stuff doesn't pay a lot, but it helps. And a few of these things, I can't build a business. There's no capital.
Time.
There's no capital to build a business, and then there's no time either. I mean, even yesterday on yesterday's flight, I just was so tired. I've been short on sleep, a lot of late nights, and I wanted to sleep, but I knew I had to work on a book. So I kind of did a little bit of both, a little bit of sleeping, a little bit of work on the book. And so eventually I would like this to take off, but I'm in early stages. I only started in February. We're talking here in August, and I've got four books I'm working on simultaneously. I have to say no to people. And I say,
And are these people who want your help with writing, with promoting, or both?
all of it, different capacities. And
Mhm.
the marketing is easier. It's less time consuming because I already have the contacts, the connections that I can send emails. But I also want to make sure I can deliver. I want everybody I work with to go to number one on Amazon, which is fairly meaningless, but it's a nice thing to achieve because it is kind of hard to do. A lot of these are self-published authors
And
too.
when you say go to number one on Amazon, you mean in a particular
In a
category.
particular category, and some categories are very competitive. I mean, you've got to be in the top, 1% of all books just to make it, number one in a given category. Depend on the category. And a lot of these are personal development books. These are very competitive categories. Self-help, personal development. These are the most popular books in the world. These are Mel Robbins, James Clear, Tony Robbins. These are Malcolm Gladwell. These are the most popular books in the world as far as nonfiction, types of books, novels and such, fantasy, and may make their argument as far as total sales. But what I want to do is be able to, and that's just one metric, go to number one in any category in Amazon. Usually I get to number one in multiple categories, and what that equates to is usually thousands and thousands of dollars in royalties from Amazon, often within the first week for the author. Basically, I want them to recoup Whatever they pay me, I want them to get back in a relatively short time. And so if I can't be confident that I can do that for someone, I have to say no. And it takes away from my ability to give my best to the projects that I'm working on at a given time.
Hmm.
And so, and this is all new. I didn't know I was going to be ghostwriting. That's how this big project evolved. And what it taught me is that I can't do that again unless I give myself a longer runway to do it. And if I take on fewer projects and make that a primary one. Or I don't do ghostwriting in the future and I can take on lots of different marketing projects at the same time because I piggyback on those same contacts and connections to promote various books. And because I have my own tour, I have my own newsletter, my own social media audience. I have my own platforms where that just takes time and effort,
Sure.
but it takes skill and talent and patience and all these other things to write a book, as you know, is difficult. It's just, and I do feel overwhelmed a lot, but at the same time, I know this is new. These are growing pains. This is what I have to go through. And if I can do it and come out the other side with revenue sharing, a percentage of royalties, additional opportunities, you know, that'll work. And Glenn, I have to say, like, I mean, you've obviously been a role model in this, you and Gene Stone and others I've watched for a long time, helping other
Have you
people.
ever met Gene? I haven't.
I have met him once at Farm Sanctuary at a party at the Farm
Uh-huh.
Sanctuary Hoedown in Watkins Glen, New York.
Uh-huh.
And I think he wrote, yeah, he worked on Gene Bauer's books, and that's one of the reasons why he was there, I believe.
Yeah. I've corresponded with him once or twice, but never met him.
Yeah, he's worked with Michael Greger, Kathy Freston, a bunch of different
Yeah.
people. But you have been role models for what I'm now really what I'm breaking into, helping other people bring their books to life and tell their
Mhm.
stories and make their
Well,
dreams come true. And I love it, but it is hard, and I have to settle into it. And I feel like I'm off to a good start. And a couple of these books, like this one and David Atkins' book, which is a friend of Joe's and now a friend of mine, he's a non-vegan guy, but the book has nothing to do with veganism. It's a personal development book. They've both done well. Those books are somewhat behind me now, and I can really focus on the other couple books that I'm really focused on. But one of those, of course, is the ghostwriting one, and that's a lot of work. And so, like I said, I don't want to say who that's with. I don't know if the author wants to reveal that I
mhm.
worked, large that I wrote the bulk of it. I don't know how that's going to be presented when it all comes out, and so I'm just keeping that anonymous at the moment. But I enjoy doing this, and as I've said to my wife, as I've said to my best friend, as I've said to, I think even my newsletter audience at this point, I honestly find it just as rewarding as writing my own books. They're in some ways even more rewarding. When I get the endorsements that come in, when I
Yeah.
get to see number one bestseller next to someone else's name, and I know that I helped them do that, that's as if it's my own. That's as if
Yeah.
not that I'm taking credit for their work, but I take the satisfaction. I don't need the credit. In fact, the book that I'm ghostwriting, I don't think you'll see my name anywhere except in the acknowledgments. And I'm 100% fine with that. My name's not on the cover, not on the inside cover. I don't need it to be. I don't want it to be. This is a job that I was hired to do and to the best of my ability. And that's for that author to have their moment the way they want to do it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I get a lot of fulfillment from it. I get a lot of joy. Whether my name is, yes, my name's on the front cover of this book, it's right there. You can see it. And I wrote the foreword for a bunch of books recently and all of that. Um, but it's fun. And then the last thing I'll say on this, Glenn, is that because I'm on this Veg Fest tour, I think largely because of that, people get to see me in person and they've seen the work that I've done online, marketing other people's books, and they've seen my newsletters, and then they see me on tour with a stack of someone else's book and watching that stack sell out, which we did. With Joe's book sold out at Albuquerque Veg Fest. Now, granted, that was like half a dozen copies because you never know. not my own book. How are we going to sell? But we sold all of them. Then the other speakers, prominent speakers, hey, Robert, we're working, I'm working on a book. I'd like to work with you. And then someone else, Robert, I get the emails coming all the time when I celebrate another number one on Amazon. Hey, Robert, I see what you're doing out there. I'd love to hire you. Can we set up a call? And I can't, right, not right now. I said, reach out in 2026. If I had a team, if I had a business, whatever, but I don't have that. And so much of it is it's me, right? It's the people that I know. It's the market. It's my newsletter audience. It's my social media audience. It's my contacts. It's hard for me to pass that responsibility on to someone that I could hire. It's a lot of this is goes through me, and
Mm.
for better or for worse, that's the situation that I'm in.
Well, promoting other people's books, whether you've co-authored them or not, you're spreading the vegan message. You're being an impactful vegan, to coin a term.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and hopefully making a difference. And it's certainly making a difference in the lives of those authors. And
now,
it's a
now
joy.
I think you mentioned before in passing that there was something new on the bodybuilding front you wanted to mention.
Well, if you can see the tightness of my sleeves, that's
Yes, I see
indication
that.
that I've no desire.
These sleeves are pretty tight too.
Yeah, here's my other hand. You can see that I'm not grabbing. There we go.
Yeah.
I'll freeze that for the audience to watch that. I am, I'm having a lot of fun with the fitness thing again. I am doing a program with Fit Vegan Coaching, Maxim Seguin. I've lost 20 to 25 pounds since February, 6 months. And I'm just having a lot of fun with fitness again. I have no aspirations to compete in bodybuilding. But I only say this because I'm on kind of this, it's almost like an anniversary tour. So this is my 30th year as a vegan. It's also my 45th year of life, I guess, or technically 46th year. I don't know. I'm 45 and a half. But I'm kind of going through these milestones where, as I've been using this wording I just kind of came up with, I'm in some of the best shape I've been in, maybe in my life. and I'm,
Hmm.
and I'm very strong, and I'm closer to 50 than 40, and I'm 3 decades into veganism. And I think there's a story there because there's always questions about longevity with veganism, including
Hmm.
with health, associated with health, that it's not sustainable. You can't do it over the long haul. You can't do it long term. And I'm as big and strong as I've ever been. Again, we'll cross the arms there and show people. I'm as big and strong as I've ever been, and I don't have the testosterone levels of a 20 something year old or a 30 something year old, closer to 50 than 40. And I've been doing this a very long time, 30 years. And that's a big part of what I promote now. Even if you went to my Instagram page right now, you'd see more fitness photos than book photos. I did the big launches with Joe and David and supporting some other books, but now I'm just showcasing a lot of fitness because I think when it comes to being an impactful vegan too, we've got to challenge the status quo and the narrative that is believed by so many, the vast majority, that you can't get enough protein as a vegan, you can't get enough nutrition as a vegan, you just can't do it on a plant-based diet. That's what's being told. And I'm one example, and I figured I'm not getting any younger. And I've retired from bodybuilding 16 years ago, from competitive bodybuilding. I'm way beyond that and removed from that. There's people that are way better than I am at competitive bodybuilding and competitive vegan sports. And I know my talents and skills as a writer and editor and project manager and book marketer, and that's where I'm going to put my energy. But on the personal front, and I think an effective advocacy front, I'm still out there. Whether it was on the airplane yesterday with plant powered athlete across my back or in the gym, lifting heavier weights, depending on the gym, than almost anyone else in there with vegan across my chest, it makes people curious and it makes them think. And if I can get people to be curious and to think and to challenge their ideas of what it is to be vegan from a fitness standpoint, then I feel like I'm doing some sort of service there. And so I'm working hard. I mean, I didn't even shower. I went to the gym, changed clothes, applied some deodorant, and got on the airplane. Didn't even shower in between. I had a very heavy, strong chest workout yesterday and got on the plane. And as soon as done talking to Glenn Mercer today, back to the gym, you know, and I'll be back there tomorrow. And then and then I've got my friends Danny and Giacomo staying here the next 3, 4 days at my house. They're big time vegan athletes. I'll be in the gym with them. And I just feel like this is my chance for however long I can keep doing this, fitness thing, uh, to keep it going. And so
Hmm.
I'm having fun with it. And if I can combine some of that with writing and touring and speaking, which I am doing.
So I'm sensing maybe there's going to be a book about vegan fitness in middle age or something like that. Am I guessing right?
I can neither confirm nor deny, but I think if we're playing, what is it? It's not exactly very vegan friendly. Pin the tail on the donkey. You'd be
Yeah.
right next to the rear end there.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are some things in the pipeline about um, middle-aged fitness as a plant-based athlete that I think is there's a great target audience for that, and there's someone who's been doing that effectively as long as anyone, and that's me. And
Well,
so I'm dabbling into to some of that.
I am entering middle age myself, based on my projected lifespan of 140.
Sure.
So, so I'll be interested in reading that book.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Middle age is it's it's a very wide range. I mean, I spent all morning chatting with Dan Butner through emails, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I mean, I saw some sort of statistic. I can't confirm it. Maybe you saw this. I didn't mention it to Dan, but I meant to ask him. I saw this statistic. It doesn't even seem like it's real. Something like 95,000 people in Japan are currently over 100 years old at the moment. I'd have
Wow.
to, I mean, who knows? Because it's a little
No,
infographic
that could be true.
I saw. I mean, they do have very high population, very, very big population, and they have some of the highest numbers of
Yeah.
centenarians. It could very well be true. 95,000 out of what is their population? A couple 100 million now. Tokyo alone is 40 million. But anyway, yeah, middle age is
Yeah.
it's a wide it's a wide range right now, and so um, I
Well,
just
for me, what made me begin to understand health was being a playwright, because I would write plays and submit them to theaters, and they either wouldn't read them or they would reject them. And I realized if I'm ever going to have a play on Broadway, I have to live to be 140. So I became vegan and tried to be a healthier and healthier vegan, and now I got to read the book about vegan middle age.
Yeah. Well, it's coming. It's coming. And luckily there's a lot of us. Of course, we can go down the list of names. I'm I'm fairly unique to being in the fitness world where there's a lot of people who are longtime vegans and longtime plant-based dieters in all walks, physicians. Obviously, Dr. Michael Clapper has been doing this for a very long time. Brenda Davis, very long time, Chef AJ, and all that. And some of them are very active too, but they're not known as like athlete first. They're known as physician first, or dietitian first, or chef first. I've been known as an athlete first. Now maybe writer, author, who knows? That may supersede athlete at some point. But at least like that's I don't know the term claim to fame. I don't want to use that
Right.
expression. That's my identity. Is that I mean, I literally wrote the book, plant-based.
Right.
Like I've been a plant-based athlete since the 1900s, since before the internet. Like I've been that's and so I think if there's anybody who can write about plant-based plant-based health and fitness and middle age, it's not only someone who's in it right now and and interviewing tons of people who've been through it and who are decades older than me, but someone who's also grown up his entire life doing it, since I was an early teenager. That's all I've known. There's certain things that dawn on me, Glenn, that I never thought about. Like, I'm in the fitness world. We have things like this. Like, here's a protein drink on my desk, this plant-based protein drink. I have never even tasted whey protein before. I don't even know what it is. Like, because I've been vegan since before I was weightlifting. I've never even had a whey protein. There's
Mm-hmm.
certain things like that I've never even experienced. I've been doing this for so long. And there's plenty of other animal-based foods I've never even had because I changed my diet and lifestyle at a young age. I don't know some of these things. They're foreign to me. And so anyway, I'm really I am really enjoying this middle essence, this middle essence of fitness. It's great, and to be as strong now or stronger than I've ever been in my life is just it's kind of rewarding to do it.
Well, I say to my audience, consider yourself teased. There's a book coming. I sense it. May not be real soon, but stay tuned. I think there's going to be a book coming about vegan health and fitness in middle age, and I am looking forward to reading that since I'm on the precipice of almost reaching middle age for my playwriting career.
Well, thank you, Glenn. And I am doing some of my own writing. I also do know there's someone else working on a topic a little bit similar.
Oh,
Vasanto Molina and Brendan Davis have a similar,
oh,
but I mean, different.
that there's room for all of you.
Oh, of course. And if there's only
Yeah.
one other book, and you know, they're coming from a different perspective as well, and different age bracket and different, angle they're taking and all that. And of course, I'm going to be supportive of their book and promote it and do whatever I
Hmm.
can whenever the marketing starts for that. But yes, I am doing some of my own writing and working with others on some projects around this idea and concept that is something that I live every single day.
All right. Well, Robert, it's great catching up with you.
Yeah.
Always good to see you, and continued success in the book writing, ghost writing, promoting, and physical fitness careers.
And Veg Fest tours.
And Veg Fest tours.
Yeah.
Folks, if there's a Veg Fest in your area, go there. There's a 50-50 chance you'll see Robert.
Yeah, that's about right. Like, because I'll be in this city and not that one. There's usually two or three on a given weekend. So a 30 to 50% chance you'll see me if you go to Veg Fest.
And if you see him, go to his booth, check out the books there and the goods.
And we'll get a smiling, flexing thumbs up photo together too. That's what I do at the booth. Everybody comes by who wants one, gets a smiling, flexing photo. Looks just like this.
All right. Robert, great to see you. Take care, my
Thank you,
friend.
Glenn. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right.